The Iranian president warns that violence and vandalism won't be tolerated after 4 days of demonstrations.
Hassan
Rouhani appears on television to say people have the right to protest, but that his country's problems stem from international sanctions. Firefighters tackle a huge blaze at Liverpool Arena. The fire broke out in the multi-storey car park. Divers recover the bodies of 6 people to be British who died when a sightseeing plane crashed in Australia. A penalty save. The City avoid defeat, but their 18-game winning run in the Premier League finally comes to an end. And New Year's celebrations get underway around the globe as we prepare to welcome in 2018. Hello and a very good evening. The Iranian President Hassan Rouhani has declared that people have the right to protest and criticise his government, but not resort to violence and vandalism. His comments are the first bigger in Iran since widespread protests against the government began on Thursday. Today, police in Tehran used water cannon on the crowds. Kazra Naji from the BBC's Persian service reports.
Central Tehran during the 4th day of anti-government protests. These protesters are shouting death to the dictator, a reference to Iran's supreme leader. The protests are the most serious challenge to the Iranian clerical regime for many years. As the night fell, there were reports of demonstrations from those cities up and down the country. President Rouhani has finally made a comment on the unrest days after they started, the first top Iranian leader to do so. He said Iranians had a right to protest, but not to violence and destruction. He said Iran had many problems that dated back to previous years, a reference to years of international sanctions because of its nuclear program. The wave of demonstrations throughout the country started on Thursday here in Mashhad in the northeast with what was to be a small protest sponsored by the hardliners to criticize the economic policies of government of President Rouhani, something that quickly got out of control. Earlier in the day, the government moved to limit access in Iran to the internet and to popular social media apps like Telegram. But in spite of these efforts, more and more videos are being posted on social media, and there have been more violence. Here in western city of Tosargan, for example, where a number of people are reported to have been injured. President Rouhani's latest words are unlikely to calm these demonstrators who are calling for the overthrow of the government. Kazra Naji, BBC News.
Firefighters have been tackling a major fire at the Liverpool Echo Arena. The blaze broke out in the multi-storey car park earlier this evening. Our correspondent Steve Saul is at the arena tonight. Steve, what can you tell us? How much do we know at this stage?
Jane, this is a major operation for Merseyside Fire and Rescue Service this evening. 1,600 cars are thought to be involved in this major blaze at the multi-storey car park to the side of the Liverpool Echo Arena, close to the Albert Dock in the city centre. Crews got the call at around 5:45 this evening. A number of vehicles thought to have been involved in an incident that then spread throughout the building. A major operation underway. 12 fire engines and 2 aerial platform ladders have been sent to the scene. More emergency service vehicles arrive as we speak. You can see the flames still shooting out of the car park some 4 hours after this fire started. City Mayor Joe Anderson is appealing for help for accommodation and for transport to try and help get people home. Many people unable to access their vehicles this evening. The Liverpool International Horse Show had been taking place here. The horses were led into the arena to keep them safe as their owners moved the horse boxes that were parked on the ground floor of the car park. Now that a major investigation underway, and this incident continues here tonight.
Steve, many thanks. Steve Saul in Liverpool. At least 36 people have been killed in a head-on collision between a bus and a lorry on a notoriously dangerous road in Kenya. The bus was carrying people to the capital, Nairobi, when the accident happened on the Nakuru-Eldoret highway. More than 100 people have died in the last few weeks on that stretch of road. A seaplane has crashed into a river near Sydney, killing all 6 people on board, and reports suggest 4 of the victims are British, although this has not been confirmed by the police. The Foreign Office here is in contact with officials in Australia. The aircraft, on a sightseeing trip in the run-up to the New Year celebrations, came down in a river close to the suburb of Cowan. Phil Mercer reports from Sydney.
The seaplane crashed into Jerusalem Bay near the town of Cowan. On board were 5 passengers and the pilot. The single-engine aircraft is thought to have sunk rapidly. A witness said it had made a tight right-hand turn and then nosedived into the Hawkesbury River. A full-scale search was soon underway. There were no survivors. Police divers have found 6 bodies. The wreckage of the plane remains in more than 40 feet of water. The authorities say a full investigation will take place.
I cannot confirm the identity or ages of the people who are on the plane. It is early in the investigation and we are working with the plane company, getting investigators here to confirm the identities and investigate why the plane crashed into the water.
The seaplane was returning from a waterfront restaurant to Rose Bay on Sydney Harbour. It's a journey that would normally take around 20 minutes. The aircraft is owned by Sydney Seaplanes. It provides flights around some of the city's most popular tourist attractions, including the Opera House, the Harbour Bridge, and to the north, the Hawkesbury River. The company said in a statement that its pilots are some of the most experienced in the world and that all its flights had been suspended until further notice. Air crash investigators will arrive at the site of the accident early on New Year's Day to try to establish how and why a routine sightseeing flight could end in catastrophe. Phil Mercer, BBC News, Sydney.
Here, thousands of rail travellers have faced disruption today as workers from 2 companies staged a 24-hour strike. Members of the RMT union on South Western Railway and Cross Country have been taking part in disputes about the role of guards and working patterns. New Year celebrations have begun around the world as we welcome in 2018. New Zealand was the first to see fireworks before Sydney Harbour was transformed into a blaze of colour. This report from Richard Lister contains flashing images.
Once again, Sydney set the standard for New Year's fireworks. 1.5 million people lined the harbourfront for a dazzling, deafening celebration. The rainbow theme was a tribute to Australia's legalisation of same-sex marriage. 2 hours earlier, Auckland, New Zealand was the first major city to celebrate 2018. Its Sky Tower lit up like a giant Roman candle. That's the unmistakable sound of North Korea joining the celebrations, with what else but a display of rocket power. Perhaps the most unusual display, though, didn't involve fireworks at all. In Dubai, they lit up the world's tallest building with lasers. The Burj Khalifa became a shimmering canvas, visible up to 60 miles away. While midnight swept around the world, New York was gearing up for its celebrations, one of several cities with unprecedented security this year. Parts of China have had a day of festivities, even though they'll mark the new year in February. But Hong Kong may have outdazzled Sydney. fireworks exploded across Victoria Harbour to a tune most of us will be singing later. Richard Lister, BBC News.
Well, yes, here, large crowds are gathered for the celebrations in Edinburgh and London. Our correspondent Andrew Black is in Edinburgh tonight. First, let's hear from Jonathan Blake, who's on the banks of the Thames. Jonathan.
Well, the countdown is well and truly on now for London to see in 2018 with a spectacular fireworks display as ever. Crowds here on the embankment and on the bridges across the River Thames are building as the 100,000 people who have tickets to see tonight's display up close take their place in the viewing areas. It's a huge event and requires a huge security operation. It's tight, as you would imagine. The Metropolitan Police say there's no specific threat to tonight's celebrations, but they're asking people to be vigilant. People have had their bags searched on the way in and asking people to report anything they see that is suspicious. Armed officers are also on patrol, and we're told undercover officers are working within the crowd as well. The fireworks themselves, we're told 11 minutes and 15 seconds worth. There'll be 3 barges on me with 30 tons of equipment setting off 50,000 individual explosions into the night sky, with of course the London Eye the centrepiece of tonight's show. The soundtrack featuring female artists to celebrate 2018 as the centenary year of women being given the right to vote, and it all kicks off of course as Big Ben chimes midnight. But London not the only city celebrating in style tonight. Andrew Black is in Edinburgh.
Well, thanks very much, Jonathan. As you can see behind me, the party is really kicked off now. This is Princes Street, the main street through Edinburgh city centre. It's been transformed for a massive street party tonight. We're expecting around 60,000 people here at the peak, and 150,000 people in all coming to Edinburgh to see in the new year. Tonight will end, of course, with a massive crescendo, a huge fireworks display which is set off every year from the Edinburgh Castle battlements. It's apparently been extended and is now going to be a record length, more than 10 minutes long. People here have also been enjoying live music from the likes of Rag and Bone Man and the Human League as well. But of course, amongst all that, there is the serious issue of security. Big like this need a strict policing operation. Police here have put extra resources out on the streets, including armed officers, but as with the event in London, there has not been any threat, and at the moment the police have been trying to make sure that people can enjoy themselves as much as possible while keeping a close eye on things as well. Now there is some more good news tonight, because this is Scotland in the winter and the weather can sometimes be pretty horrific, and in fact parts of Scotland have been battered by Storm Dylan over the last day or so. Organisers were confident tonight that things would go ahead as planned. They have indeed. The weather is holding out. It's not too bad here tonight, and I think people, as you can see, are having a really awesome time, and I think that's probably going to continue right to the final countdown to midnight.
Absolutely. Enjoy the party. Thanks very much, Andrew and Jonathan. Thank you. Now, football, and Arsene Wenger reached a milestone by taking charge of Arsenal for a record 811 Premier League matches as his club drew 1-1 with West Bromwich Albion. And Manchester City's winning run in the league has come to a halt after 18 games. They were held to a goalless draw by Crystal Palace, but they still head into the new year with a 14-point lead at the top of the table. Adam Wilde, the action. Just about all for tonight. You can see more on all today's stories on the BBC News channel, of course. From all of us here on The Late Team, I wish you a very happy new year. Good night. Bye-bye.